Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 254 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast. There's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight, she's the greatest hostess the entire world could ever want. She's amazing. She's good. You're not here for me. You're here for her. Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
Well, I'm sorry to bring things down, but yeah, things are kind of somber right now because as we record this is the anniversary, the 70-year anniversary of the Pulse nightclub massacre, and so that's been on my mind. And what's interesting, well, maybe not interesting, but I never think of Pulse as happening on the 12th, so it always catches me by surprise. I think of it happening on the 13th, because the 13th is that Sunday when I woke up and was drinking coffee on Facebook, and people were asking me, Aaron, are you okay? And it's like, why wouldn't I be okay? What's going on? And then I saw what had happened, and then my reaction to that is what started Blazing Sword. So Blazing Sword was born on the 13th. Therefore, in my head, I just think Pulse happened on the 13th. But it happened before midnight, so it happened on the 12th. And so, despite my best efforts, it catches up to me, and it sidelines me every time. So that's how I'm doing.
Yeah, that's...
How are you doing, Weer'd? Do you have better news?
Yeah, I have the in the world of cuteness, my daughter and one of her friends decided that they were going to have a lemonade stand. And so they set up a table, and we baked some brownies and some cupcakes as well, because there was huge plans involved, like huge plans, and any sort of adult advice was completely ignored. And And yeah, so they made lemonade, and they were selling it and hawking it and running up and down the streets with signs, being like little signboard girls. And then they made some money. And
when did the state come and shut them down?
And that was, I was telling David about that a little earlier, and he's like, did the man get involved? And I said, that was a very real risk. It's always been a concern. Because, yeah, Massachusetts is definitely one of those states that's going to pull it and say, "Oi! You got a license for that?" But my town is, as far as Massachusetts goes, a little less crazy than most. Maybe compared to your town, it's still completely crazy, but it's a little less crazy.
I mean, I don't know. Weird. You'd have to compete with Florida, man.
That is true. It's... Let's all be honest. Florida is probably a little bit crazier than most states because, one, it's one of the corner states. Florida and Alaska are the two states where if people are running, that's where they run out of room. But also Florida has the Sunshine Act, so therefore all of the public records are easily accessible. So that's why so many police badge cams and so many news stories come out of Florida, because it's just super easy to get a hold of all of that information, as opposed to other states where you may have to jump through hoops. I can imagine I wonder if there's something about Wisconsin as well. It's only just popped into my head, but that's like the two, like if you're watching like police badge cams, like 90% of them are either Florida or Wisconsin. And I don't know what the reason for that is. But yeah, so Florida's not nearly as crazy, but it is at the end. So therefore there's a lot of people that have run off and escaped to Florida, and it's also tropical. So therefore the weather is nice to be doing weird shenanigans. And you guys got alligators, and there's a lot of Florida man stories that involve alligators.
Oh yeah. In fact, a friend of the show, Nissa, actually sent me some sort of Facebook reel. And they were talking about Florida, and I don't remember it exactly. I'll try and pull it up for the show, but it was one of these, when you're in Florida, okay, is it freshwater or saltwater? Freshwater. Do you see crocodiles? No. Okay, that means there are hidden crocodiles there. The joke being basically, if it's freshwater, just there are crocs there. The only difference is whether they're hidden or not. Saltwater, sharks. and so she said, it never really hit me until I saw that. Just okay, Florida's got all these predators. And I said, oh, yeah, it's true. In a way, we're kind of America's Australia.
Yeah. And FYI, the crocodiles that are common to Florida are saltwater crocs. So so it doesn't matter what the water's like. The crocs could go there.
Well, or maybe I should have said, I think I should have said gators instead of crocodiles.
There are certainly...
I'm not...
There are certainly more alligators, but alligators are far less ornery than crocs.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm not working at 100% brain here, but gators are freshwater, crocodiles are saltwater, and for the longest time, I thought we only had gators, but no, apparently we've got crocodiles too. Mm-hmm. So, yay!
I saw a video of a guy. He was wading through the Everglades at night. It was one of these like completely out of context videos, and like he was just wading through it. He had obviously a headlamp or something, some high power light on it, and just shining. Like, oh, there's a crocodile, and he's in the water with a crocodile, and then also as he's going through, he'd like shine his light on alligators, but he didn't call them alligators. He called them swamp puppies.
They have orange eye shine. Did you know that?
I did not. I assumed it was yellow.
No. It's orangey. I don't know if it's maybe more towards the red side of orange, but yeah. And I know this because I take walks at night, and when I pass by the retention ponds and canals and things like that, I shine the light in there, and occasionally I see an eye looking at me. Yeah. Okay, so I found the link, and it is to Facebook, so if you don't have Facebook, I apologize. And then Ness added the question, what's the recommended loadout for gator? And my response was, well, I'm not a hunter, so I have no real useful knowledge in regards to the ballistics of harvesting big game. However, gators are basically dinosaurs, and they're fast and strong and have thick hides, so I personally would use a 12-gauge slug. This is also what I would use against bears. I find the 12-gauge slug solve most problems, actually.
It does solve a lot of problems. It is a very versatile loadout.
I mean, if you're trying to save the meat or the hide, okay, it might not be ideal for you, but just in terms of stopping things, yeah, a 12-gauge slug full of screw you traveling at Mach fudge is going to ruin your day.
I will say that Florida gun blogger Xavier, I think it was Xavier Thoughts was the blog. It's been ages since I've read it, but there was a gator walking up his street one day during a storm, and a police officer had pulled up and essentially told him, he said, "I'll shoot it if you want." And he says, "Go ahead." And a 45 ACP from a 1911 put that gator down with one shot. You just have to be careful to hit it in the brain because their brains are not very big.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't trust my ability to aim well with an adrenaline dump.
Yeah. But there's also just the big angle there. I remember there was a story, and I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a British big game hunter in Africa, and he would kill elephants with a 303 Enfield, and obviously the 303 Enfield is considerably less powerful than most big game rifles used in Africa. But his whole thing was, you just shoot him in the brain, which is a lot harder to do because elephants have very, very large heads. They have very, very large brains, but compared to the size of their head, there's a whole lot more head than there is brain. And so to figure out exactly where the brain is in all that head to make a brain shot with a 303 Enfield is not an easy task.
Yeah. Or I suppose you could do like a Kentucky Ballistics did and have, a 6-gauge rifled slug. Yes. Oh, my God.
I think he has a 4-bore as well. Like, he keeps, getting more ridiculous stuff. I know for a little while, for some episodes, he had his father on there because after he'd had his accident, which he'd had it was like a crazy Sabo round, which I don't know if they ever figured out exactly why the round had gone bad, but essentially some people blamed the rifle, but there's a lot of evidence that said that the round was super duper hot funky, and essentially it blew up a Serbu BFG or there was the Royal Nunsuch 50, and and the one of the pieces of the gun actually entered his chest cavity, and they had to they had to crack his chest open, and so he had he has the open heart surgery scar, and because of that, he was told not to fire the heavy caliber rifles because it might open him back up.
Yeah, you're right. It was a 4-bore.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 6. The man is crazy in all the best ways, but he's still crazy.
6 would also be ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
4 is just more ridiculous.
And in this episode, I'm going to shoulder fire a punt gun.
Yes. Oh, man.
Okay.
I mean, they're black powder. How bad could it be?
Yeah, well, so were cannons back in the day.
Oh, especially when you realize like the amount of recoil that they would do, how they would roll back into like the ship or the battlement. All right, well, now that we've brought it up, let's take it back down again, unfortunately. But I wanted to talk about this news story just because it had a couple of useful points. It's not a happy story. There was an attack in Paris, France, at a children's playground where a man essentially just ran up to a bunch of kids playing and just started stabbing them. Thankfully, it appears that all of them have survived and will make at least a pretty close to a full recovery. I'm not hearing any stories about severe injuries going on.
Well, I mean, to be honest, if you have to go in for surgery, that sounds pretty severe to me.
Yeah.
But you are correct in that everything I have seen indicates that they're all out of surgery, and for the moment they're stable, and that's really the best you can hope for at this point.
Yeah, and our thoughts and prayers go out to them and to their families for all of that. And so obviously the big point and the reason why this fell on my desk in the first place is again showing the absolute futility of gun bans, because hey, this guy was able to do what would be per the anti-gun standards would be a spree killing, because again, there are many of the anti-gun spree killings, when they say that there's been like hundreds of spree killings this year alone, when there's really only been like a few dozen this decade. You have they're dealing with a lot of incidents just like this where multiple people were injured but no one was killed. But so there's simply that a dude with a knife can just go in and stab up your playground going through. And I guess a bigger takeaway from it is I posted a video of the attack. I'm not going to expect anybody to watch it if they don't want to, because it's not a pleasant thing to watch. But the big takeaway that I had from it was that, first up, that people were jumping up and actually attacking this guy and ganging up on him and getting him to stop. And they're probably the reason why there are no deaths, because let me tell you.
The guy with a backpack, and that's really all he had, and he managed to dissuade this guy. So big clunking brass balls on him. Good for him.
Yep. And it's good thinking outside the box, because again, it's a backpack. It's not a weapon. But also all they had was improvised weapons. They did not have a knife of their own, and they certainly didn't have a firearm, of which would be, I mean, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this today, and just while I was walking my daughter to school, and just the fact of you gotta stop them. Like there's no other choice when someone is stabbing children. Like, you just walking away is just a moral problem. But one of the things is that as we go up the continuum of choice weapons my daughter could have taken this guy down with a gun, just because, firearms aren't that put a lot of power down range and aren't that challenging to use. We joke about how every time a new shooter goes to the range, the first shot goes like right through the 10 ring. And so that's it. It's an easy way to put power down. And then furthermore, if somebody had a knife they probably could have done a lot of damage to this guy, which might have persuaded him. And when you're getting down to what these guys had, you might have to have pretty much a lot more martial arts type training to be able to do the type of damage to stop an attack like this.
So if you scroll down on the bbc.com link, there is something, and I don't know if this is the backpack guy or if it's someone else, but he's actually got a video, and it's in French, but it's subtitled, and he was saying how he was chasing after this guy, and he noticed there were police there, but they couldn't catch up with him, and he was yelling at the police, "Shoot him, he's stabbing everybody," and they took their sweet time in finally neutralizing him. So, not only is this an instance of if someone, if a responsible citizen had a gun, they could have acted in defense of these children, but once again, the police were slow to act or didn't act, and yeah, that's such a pet peeve of mine. Again, because it gets back to Pulse. The police arrive and wait for an hour. And so, yeah, the police are there. You've got an unarmed civilian who is literally begging the police, shoot this guy. And, I mean, they eventually did, but it's really, really frustrating. But again, when someone is running around with a knife, it's good to have a gun. And the European was actually calling for someone with a gun to shoot the man. And, okay, just on an incredibly personal note, this waste of human flesh, when he emigrated to France from Sweden on his application, he lists himself as being a Christian. And apparently there's witness evidence that during the incident, while attacking the children, he invoked the name of Jesus Christ. And I think perhaps, I don't know, I speak on behalf of all Christians when I say, fuck you to hell, buddy. I mean, just attacking children is already beyond the pale, but now you're going to invoke the Prince of Peace, the one who loves children. No, I know God loves everyone, but no, he shouldn't love you. You need to be raped to death, and then Satan will rape you. I'm just so furious.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think he actually emigrated to France, according to the article that I linked, and this is like a very, very complicated web, but he fled Syria as a refugee to Sweden, and then he was in France for this. He's got a family back in Sweden that were not with him for this, so I don't know why he was in France or what his reasoning was, or if this was it. Who knows? Or if he was having some sort of major mental issue.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, all I see here is that he had refugee status in Sweden, and then this year he applied, or last year he applied for refugee status in France. I just assumed he immigrated. I don't know. I just got mad and stopped following up on that.
Yep. But unfortunately, also
some people just need to be shot dead, and he was one of them.
Yeah. This one of the children stabbed was also was British, and another one was Dutch. So this was like quite the international incident. So yeah, but either way, that's the gun bans are futile because all they do is they make somebody with gun bans and knife bans make it so that just some dude who's just ignoring the law and having a knife and doing awful things is going to have tremendous amount of power. And then again, when the balloon goes up, if you find yourself in the middle of a spree killing event, sorry, you got what you got. And you've got to do what you can. And there might be some instances where getting away is the best choice. But in the case of innocent people being just slaughtered, especially children, especially if they're your children, Yeah, that's really not an option. And so I applaud the people that did fight back against this guy, even when they were outmatched in the fact that he had a knife and they had whatever they had.
I get nothing. I'm just going to fume for a while.
Well, let's talk about a little bit of a nicer story. This one, I saw the headline and put it I put it in the show notes before I'd actually read the full thing. I just saw it and went, oh, this is a good story. The headline is U.S. cannot ban people convicted of nonviolent crimes from owning guns, appellate court says. And and I just assumed that this was that's the Lautenberg Amendment, is the one that essentially says that even if you're convicted of a domestic violence offense, even if it's a misdemeanor, then you lose your rights to a firearm, of which I have been vocally opposed to, just because if it's a misdemeanor crime, why is it that you could do whatever you did to your spouse or domestic partner to a complete stranger and be totally fine to have a gun, but not to them? Again, not me condoning violence, but just saying, if we say it's totally okay, if you have get a little bit of a bar brawl with someone, have a little tussle, and end up hitting somebody, well, you might get a charge for simple assault, but you won't lose your firearms rights. But at the same time, if you get into a little brawl with a domestic partner, nope, that's it. Gun rights lost forever. But this was even further. This was someone convicted of a nonviolent. It doesn't say if it was a felony or not. It's kind of implied that it might not be. But essentially, this person.
Well, he pled guilty to welfare fraud.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very felonious to. Oh, okay, here we go. He pled guilty in 1995 to committing welfare fraud in order to obtain $2,500 of food stamps, a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 5 years imprisonment. And so, federal criminal law, if you spend more than a year in prison, regardless of whether it's felony or misdemeanor, you can't own a gun.
I believe it might even be if you're convicted by something with a sentencing guidelines is more than a year. So in this case, he never actually went to prison. He was on probation. But I believe it goes, and I might be speaking out of school, but I believe if the sentencing guidelines are a year or more for it, so a year is on the low end of the sentencing guidelines, then it's still a considered felonious, it's still prohibited person status. But in this case, it was not a felony, and it was not violent. It was not a good thing that he did. I disagree with that. But again, does that mean that this person should have their rights taken away? And that fits into something that I absolutely say over and over again when I come to reforms of the prohibited persons list, and the big key one being nonviolent. If somebody is committing a crime, even if it's a felony, again, Martha Stewart is the great example that I chime into. Martha Stewart was convicted of perjury. She spent some time in prison, and she is a convicted felon, and she will never be able to own a gun for the rest of her life unless she does something to expunge that record. And I tell anybody, if you suddenly found yourself in an elevator with Martha Stewart, would you be concerned? I wouldn't be. O.J. Simpson, even as old and health problems that he's got, I might be concerned. He was someone who was a very, very violent man on many levels, and even at old age, I'd be like, I'm alone in an elevator with O.J. Simpson. But Martha Stewart, no, I'm not concerned. She's never physically hurt anybody, as far as I know. So why should she not have a firearm?
Well, what I found very interesting about this is that when this went up against the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, is that 11 judges said, yeah, it's unconstitutional. 11-4. I didn't expect that large a majority. I expected it to be razor thin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just a good news story all around. Like I said, I saw the headline and went, oh, that's a good headline. And then as I read it, I'm like, oh, this is better than I thought.
Yeah, and this is something that I do frequently have conversations with when I go to various conventions or to give speeches, and they basically say, well, are there any gun laws that you agree with? And not many of them. And one of the things I do mention is I mention this, and as I don't think you've said it this time, but we've said it before, if you trust people to be around other people and have access to knives and fire and gasoline and household chemicals and pressure cookers and speeding cars, you really shouldn't be worried about them having access to a gun. And if you are, they shouldn't be out of jail. But you know what? I'll make a compromise. We can restrict the Second Amendment rights of people convicted of violent crimes, but if you are a white-collar criminal, you are a criminal, but you are not violent. And so, so how about that? We'll compromise and say that if you aren't a violent criminal, you get your Second Amendment rights back when you get out of jail. And most of them agree with me. And so it's nice to see that federal judges agree.
Yeah, no, I 100% concur with you. And I philosophically agree with if someone can't be trusted with a firearm, then they shouldn't be out in public without supervision. I 100% agree with that statement overall. But at the same time, I know that logistically that's not necessarily something that is that can be easily accomplished. And so I am willing to compromise on people who are committing violent crimes, having some restrictions placed on their Second Amendment rights. I don't have a problem with it. Of course, I will say that I don't agree with the Gone for Life. I think that there should be a system, and it should be fairly easy for someone to petition the courts to have their rights restored. Once they keep their nose clean, because I know lots of people who either had substance abuse problems or were just generally anger issues or stuff that they have gotten over, and they were violent in the past and now they are not violent anymore, and they do not have the issues that they had before. They've learned to use their words, and in which case, good. And you prove that to them. Aren't just saying it, then fine. Rights are restored.
Which is basically the process we have now. Yes.
But I think it's too difficult right now. I think so many people are just forever, especially the number of people that I know that when they were in their late teens or young adulthood who got caught with minor drug offenses, and yep, that's it, all done, is just horrendous.
I have a very close friend who, when he was still a young man, but was legally an adult, or I don't know, might have been 16. I really don't remember. But the point was, he shoplifted food because he was hungry, because he grew up in an abusive household and his parents didn't take very good care of him. And so he was literally shoplifting food in order to live. And he got caught and he got arrested. And because he didn't have a criminal record, and because the circumstances of it, they came to an agreement, and that agreement was essentially he would, and I'm drawing a blank now on the specifics because I hadn't planned to talk about this, but it was some degree of, well, this is your first offense, and so we're going to put you into this program to make sure that you don't offend again. And it worked. He learned better coping strategies and, hasn't offended again. The thing is, though, because he entered the program, that's interpreted as pleading guilty. And he didn't know that until he applied for a job that required a criminal background check in order to, because he was like working with money. Like, I don't remember if it was like a bank or brokerage or something like that, where it's more than just a standard background check. And that popped up. And they were like, hey, I'm sorry, but according to this, you have a criminal record. We cannot hire you. Goodbye. And he was like, wait, really? And so, yeah, he didn't realize that he had a criminal record because of this. And so, yeah, it not only does it come back to haunt you, it can ambush you.
Mm-hmm. Or similarly, like, people don't necessarily know the laws. Like, when I shot my first 1911, I had no idea that I couldn't just walk into a store and buy one at age 19. And I never figured that out until after I turned 21, because I was a college student and I was way too damn broke to even consider buying a gun. But people don't necessarily think on the long terms. Like I said, I know somebody in college who just pled guilty to a minor drug possession. They got caught with some drugs, and they pled down with it because that was easy. It was, the court case was quick. They got a fine and public service, and that was it. And they were out. And they're like, good, yeah, it's done. I made it go away.
Was it marijuana?
It was marijuana.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep. Interestingly enough, the he got his is it public service? It feels like I'm saying the wrong word, but essentially community service. That's exactly it. The community service he got was working in the dining hall of the dorm that we were in at the time, and his supervisor also was a marijuana smoker, and so he traded some weed, and the guy said that he showed up all week. but because he got it so that he didn't have to spend any time in jail, and he didn't have any lengthy sentences to do out, he said, oh, this is perfect, except he's a convicted felon, so if he ever tries to buy a firearm, he's going to get denied. Or if he, since this was in the state of Maine, if he, which by the way, you can have marijuana now, but if he or if he ended up buying from somebody else in a private sale, someone just sold him a gun, then that would be a crime for him to have it. So yeah, that's a sticky wicket that you don't want to get into, and it sucks because, again, I've got no problem with people that use substances, but it's illegal, and I get it, but how is this person dangerous?
Given that it's no longer illegal, he might have a very strong case for having that expunged from his record.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't been in touch with him in decades, but yeah, it would be that is an interesting thought. So, speaking of also interesting thoughts, Aaron, Gavin Newsom, in his infinite wisdom, in case you didn't hear the stink on my voice, has made a proclamation. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and also he hasn't officially announced, but let's be honest, he wants to be president. Has proposed that we should have a 28th Amendment of the Constitution. And before we get into this too in depth, I will say that this is a very, very unserious action. This is the definition of virtue signaling. This is not something that I am in the least bit concerned about for both just the basic logistics of it, and I don't think he's very serious about it, because again, he's proposing an amendment to the Constitution, and the link to the show notes is to Governor Newsom's website, the gov.ca.gov. This is the California governor's website, and there in no way, shape, or form anywhere in here is there text to this amendment. He's just telling us what it's supposed to say, and we should just trust him on what's going on. So,
but enough foreplay, Weer'd. What does the amendment say?
Yes, the 28th Amendment Let's see, or I'll read at this point. Our ability to make a more perfect union is literally written in the Constitution. So today I am proposing a 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution to do just that. The 28th Amendment will enshrine the Constitution common sense gun safety measures that Democrats, Republicans, and independents, citation needed, gun owners overwhelmingly support, while leaving the Second Amendment unchanged and respecting America's gun owning tradition. The 28th Amendment will permanently enshrine four broadly supported gun safety principles into the U.S. Constitution: raising the federal minimum age to purchase a firearm from 18 to 21, mandating universal background checks to prevent truly dangerous people from purchasing a gun that could be used in a crime, instituting a reasonable waiting period for all gun purchases, and barring civilian purchase of assault weapons that serve no purpose other than to kill as many people as possible in a short amount of time. So, yeah. Weapons of war our nation's founders never foresaw.
There's actually something else that isn't a bullet point, but it's right below it. Additionally, the 20th Amendment will affirm Congress, states, and local governments can enact additional common sense gun safety regulations that save lives. So, yeah, leaving the Second Amendment unchanged, except for that point where we change it. So, let me start off with saying, thank goodness a gun prohibitionist has finally realized that the only way to do this is through a constitutional amendment. This is the system. He acknowledges that this is the system. I'm glad someone was paying attention in civics class, and he has proposed an amendment to get what he wants. Good for him. That said, it's not going to happen. If for no other reason than, and you double check my memory here because it has been a hot minute since I checked, but in order to get a constitutional amendment approved, you need like 3/4 of the states to vote yes on it. And over half of the states in America now are either constitutional or permitless carry. So, I mean, that's not a guarantee. That's a pretty good indicator that those states will not vote for such an amendment. And, you know, if you've got around half that are abstaining, you're not going to get the 3/4 you need to pass it. So, yeah, I really do believe this is a virtue signal, and it sounds like he is both using this as a bid for a presidential run and also raising the stakes, you know, because a lot of times there does seem to be I am more anti-gun than you, and so he's coming in hard, and he may not be all in poker terminology, but he definitely has a very, very high opening bid, and it'll be interesting to see if the other candidates, if there are any, decide to follow suit, or if they'll just let Newsom take point on this one.
Yeah, I will say that. Well, first up, I'm with you, Aaron. I applaud all of this because we occasionally, when scrolling through the gun prohibitionist feeds on various social medias and all of that, occasionally you will hear someone who will say we need to repeal the Second Amendment. That's the solution we need, and that is the solution that they need, because the Second Amendment absolutely is getting in the way of all that, especially now in light of NYSERPA v. Bruin, because the test that Clarence Thomas introduced was a very, very brilliant one, which was just saying, hey, if you thought our founders could not have foresaw these weapons of war, show me an instance where they, in the period of time between the ratification of the Second Amendment and the 14th Amendment, which I believe was about 100 years time, show me any law that is similar to the laws that you are questioning. And so people immediately talk about, at the time of, in 1791, the Continental Army or the U.S. Army used, flintlock muskets. And now we have AR-15s. The founding fathers could not have foreseen it. If you put it that way, maybe I would argue probably not, because you obviously haven't read much about like Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin and what frigging nerds they were and how geeked out about technology they were, that the fact
You're
that
into an air rifle.
Exactly.
Puckle gun.
Exactly. They knew about all of like the latest and greatest nerdy stuff that was out there in the gun world. You know, these guys were also ambassadors to foreign nations, so they were frequently traveling to Europe. And so they saw a lot of stuff, and they were nerds about technology. And so they absolutely knew about all of these things. And at no point did they say, hey, you know, there's a puckle gun. There's this air rifle that the Austrians created that can shoot like 36 times, without reloading. Maybe we should put like limits on magazines. No, they'd never said anything like that. And then furthermore, like it wasn't that much longer before we, invented the metallic cartridge. So suddenly now you're able to load a gun from the breech instead of from the muzzle. Then even the Minier ball used in the Civil War was allowed for use of a rifle much faster loading than a musket ball. And then you had stuff like the Henry rifle and all of these innovations that were going through. The machine gun, the Maxim machine gun was free and clear, 100% legal. You could mail order one and have it sent straight to your door, no questions asked, for like 30 some years before we put the NFA in effect. And so the idea that our founding fathers could never saw, well, they certainly never stopped as we were getting closer and closer to the AR-15. But furthermore, Gavin Newsom's not proposing getting rid of the Second Amendment. He's saying that he specifically is saying he wants to preserve the Second Amendment. I mean, again, citation needed, because as you said, Aaron, with that last quote, it definitely seems to be that the Second Amendment will be mooted by this, and he'll just claim that he didn't kill it. But I don't see how else he could do that, because there are already challenges going through about assault weapons and magazine capacities. The waiting periods thing is just unbelievably stupid. As I've said many times before on the show, the history behind the waiting period is not any sort of gun safety method. It was simply the original background checks needed to be mailed. And so they would need to be mailed to the FBI, and the FBI would do the check, and then they would mail the background check back to the gun shop. And so therefore you would fill out your 4473, and then you would go home and come back 5 business days later to see if you could keep your gun. And then when the National Instant Background Check System came into place, well, a lot of places got rid of it, but the anti-gun place was like, no, that'll make gun owners happy. We can't have that. So that's where the myth of the cooling off period came from. It was never had anything to do with gun safety, and it doesn't make any sense, because again, if I lived in California and I went in, I mean, I actually remember hearing Arlie Ermy talking about it to somebody. He lived in California much of his life, and he talked about it. He says, when I go to a gun shop, I have to wait 5 days, 7 days, I forget what California's waiting period is. He goes, I have so many guns at home. What the hell is that waiting period doing for me? And it's true. So yeah, there's all of these things can be ruled unconstitutional by the Second Amendment. And if he doesn't kill the Second Amendment with this, like, then what? And I would argue even constitutional scholars couldn't answer this, because no one's been so stupid to propose an amendment to the Constitution that is immediately contracted by previously established amendments. So yeah, this is... I
mean, the closest we have is the repeal of prohibition, but
the 21st Amendment directly, it's like the text of it. I could look it up, but it specifically says...
Well, the point that I'm making is that, yeah, it does previously contradict the point that I'm making is that it does contradict a previous amendment, but yeah, it does so by name, and it's basically we screwed up, this shouldn't have gotten in the first place. And that was done within, I don't know how many years, I don't have it in front of me, but it definitely wasn't 200 and some.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, it was, I think, just less than 20 years. Math is hard. But yeah, The very first line of the 21st Amendment is the 18th article of amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. Done and done, clean and simple. And that's all they need. But then they further clarify that transportation, importation into any state, territory, or possession of the United States for delivery therein intoxicating liquors in violation of law, therefore, is hereby prohibited. So there we go. And this is good law, and this is not what Gavin Newsom is proposing.
I'm a bit hung up on him saying instituting a reasonable waiting period without actually listing a waiting period. And I don't know if he has a waiting period in mind and simply doesn't want to say, or if he wants the amendment to be that vague. I really would guess it would be that. Something like, a reasonable waiting period is constitutional, and then would be the endless lawsuits over what constitutes a reasonable amount of time. Knowing him, he'd want it to be as long as possible.
Yeah, and
it just
again, there's a reason why he doesn't have text. Faith. It would not be difficult for someone like Gavin Newsom to draft up a proposed amendment, and furthermore, if the states were to convene on this, they absolutely could have say on amendments to the proposed amendment. And so, honestly speaking, it could totally backfire and have it just be, this hereby clarifies the Second Amendment. It says, yes, we mean machine guns and tanks. The right of the people to have as many tanks and machine guns that they want shall not be infringed. Did I friggin' stutter? So yeah, good job, Gavin Newsom. You did the quote unquote smart thing that the anti-gun groups generally don't do, which is rather than proposing unconstitutional laws, of which California is full of and has multiple challenges working their way up the court system against their existing law as violations of the Second Amendment. But you did it completely the wrong way by saying you're not going to touch the Second Amendment. So either you were lying, which is not a good look, but also Gavin Newsom's look, or you are really, really dumb, which is also Gavin Newsom's look. So now shifting gears, that's Gavin Newsom's look, but now we're going to give Matt's look from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns as he looks through the latest VR technology.
Hi, Matt from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns here. Figured I should probably give you a quick little update since I was doing that series on virtual reality and augmented reality, since we've had a few new entrants into the market. Meta came out a couple weeks ago and did announce that this fall they do have the Quest 3 coming. It is going to be $500 and basically double the power with higher resolution than the Quest or even the Quest Pro. The controllers will be more like the Quest Pro, where there is no tracking ring on the outside, but it no longer requires cameras looking from the controller outbound in order to do any tracking. Should be better. Will offer full color pass-through. That's going to be interesting. Now, the second entrant is Apple has finally shown off their long-rumored Vision Pro headset. Couple interesting things. They have said it does work all day wired, which means this is probably hooking to a computer or something else to provide it power, maybe a wall outlet. They did mention 2 hours when connected to the battery. So that's right, you've got this headset with a cord going down from the headset via a fabric-wrapped cable to a battery in your pocket. So, not the greatest, not the worst. It has full-on processor, same level that they put in their full-on Macs and the iPad Pros now, in addition to a reality chipset. So it looks like they did create a dedicated chip for it. As for controls on the device, there's one button that you can use to capture a picture, which these are quote-unquote 3D pictures. I don't know how much I believe that. And then the other one is a dial to change from how much reality you see, so how much the real world, to how much virtual reality you see. They show it in some of their photos and videos showing it off. I don't know. The thing is $3,500. What I do find interesting is Apple is more pitching it for kind of what the Quest Pro was going for. Doing your office, doing your tasks, all of that using a virtual screen. Watching movies via virtual screen, none of the stuff I've really been super excited about. What is interesting is the level of integration Apple is putting into this. They have confirmed that it will work with your standard keyboard, mouse, all the stuff you use with your Mac wirelessly will work with this headset. And those are if you choose to use them. Otherwise, you have virtual keyboards you can use. Then you also have your Mac. It will somehow connect to your Mac and be able to be used as a secondary screen, which I could see really interesting uses for doing like video editing. So you can have basically unlimited screen size and then clips and have the effectiveness of unlimited monitors in your space. Now, how this works for when you're just using the headset as is, it does eye tracking. So to do secure for the device, it actually reads your iris. And then it has basically 2 IR cameras per eye with IR illuminators to actually shine against your eye and track your eye movement. So it sees what you're looking at, and then it has to see your hands. And if you just put your thumb and index finger together, that selects it, and that's how you select things. And then you have a lot of this other standard multi-touch controls like you know from iPhone, Android, kind of any other device. What is quite interesting on this is they decided to go a whole nother level and put a screen on the front that shows your eyes. I'm not sure if it's actually showing your eyes. I think what it's doing is when it takes an initial image of you, it's using that version of your face and showing it there. But either way, what it does is it shows your eyes on the front of the device, or it will show a mirage, something almost kind of like the Aurora Borealis, to show how much of the real world you can see. So somebody else in the room knows, hey, they're paying attention to me, or no, they're not. What's interesting is when somebody walks close, they will automatically break in to the augmented reality or virtual reality. So you'll see them come up, even if you're in full virtual. And what happens is the eyes start to appear and uncover on the front of the display, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if this is going to be how it's going to go. Like I said, $3,500 for the first generation, rather steep, but it is kind of cool and kind of interesting. I look forward to seeing what the next generation does. And like I said, this thing is covered in cameras. It's got some interesting tech. Apple's really betting the farm that this is the next generation and where things go. And the one defense I can say for Apple on the price tag specifically comes to the lenses, at least on the interior. It looks to be a very similar design to what most of the other market is using in terms of a multi-layer lens to make it really thin. Downside of that is quality control for the other companies has been rather spotty. You can get something really good or not so great. Given the price tag Apple's charging, I would expect that you're going to probably get the good stuff no matter what. Not going to 100% guarantee that. We'll have to see when it comes out early next year. So probably somewhere between March and May of 24 is my guess, based on previous Apple cycles. So that's what we're looking at on that. If you use glasses, Apple is teaming up with Zeiss, so you can order your own lenses, prescription that just go on there and magnetically attach. Kind of cool, but that's what Apple's showing off, and you can check Apple's website if you want to see more on the Vision Pro. Just figured I should drop in and give you guys a little bit of an update to understand what has changed and what is coming in the market. And for anybody who's still there, I'd wait for the Quest 3 if you really want to get in now. Though because of that, they have dropped the Quest 2 back down to the previous lower price tags that they had before. So that's interesting. Quest 2 is going to stay around even once the Quest 3 is out. Downside on that, how long you're going to have support. Flip side is Quest 3 will support all Quest 2 titles, so you can keep your library going forward. But again, that's up to you. I think it is a really interesting space, and the way Apple is approaching it is definitely a different approach than anybody else seems to be going at this time in the market. I'm not going to say that is the best approach, but it is different, and I would love to see everyone else's different takes on this market, because I really do think this is where the future is headed. I can't wait till the day where all we have is just a screen, so you still have your lenses and you're just looking through the real world, and then it can project over it, because I don't know about you guys, but there's no way in hell I'm going to take family time and wear this dang headset. Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to capture the pictures every single moment, so you can just do it while you're in the moment, but I'm not going to block out my view of the kids or the real world just to get a picture or have this on my face. It'd be neat, but it's not worth it. When you're in the real world, live in the moment. Tech is a distraction. It can add to your life, but it can also make it worse. And considering I'm a very big tech nerd and I love tech, yeah, it can make your life worse at times. Either way, thanks for listening, and any questions or comments, send them on to Aaron or Weer'd, and they'll pass them along my direction. Live long and prosper.
First up, if you're like me and you had no idea what full color pass-through is, evidently the Quest 2 would turn on an external camera and let you see through the goggles, and that real-world image was in black and white, and now they offer it in full color. I'm trying to remember what I think I used the only one I've ever used is an Oculus Rift, and that one, yeah, you just don't get to see anything.
Yeah, I never heard of this before. I am honestly surprised that when someone thought to put a camera on, they did black and white. Why? I mean, are color cameras somehow larger? Is there a greater processing issue? I don't have the knowledge to have the proper vocabulary to answer this question. It just comes down to, but why?
Yeah, that's the same idea. Well, like when you see like a grainy security camera footage, and it's one of those like, it's like the 21st century. Like, why are we looking at grainy cameras anymore? It's not like it's like recording it onto a VHS. Either way, it was that makes a whole lot more sense. Yeah, why wouldn't you have a color camera? Yeah, and as far as the augmented reality side of it, I know you're like me, Aaron, and you'll be reading a physical book or a newspaper, and you'll want to hit Control F just to find the thing that you're looking for.
Oh, yes. I believe I've said that in the channel before.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're looking through something like, I just Control F and find it, but you can't Control F a book. Yeah, but that would
But you can an ebook or PDF, and that's why I love them.
Mm-hmm. And also I gotta say I like augmented reality. I play this game on my phone called Orna, which is like a little fantasy augmented reality thing. And like, yeah, today I might have went for a walk around town while taking my daughter to school and to kill monsters and find quest items.
So is this like Pokemon Go?
It's kind of like Pokemon Go, yeah. But yeah, it utilizes like some sort of map data, and it just kind of puts things randomly there. And there's some sort of algorithm for what the feature may be and what it turns into. Like, interestingly enough, most schools are dungeons. And like,
someone's got issues.
Yeah, and as a general rule, like if there's a store or a restaurant or something near you, there'll be a shop in that. Like there's a little like strip mall plaza near my house, and when I walk by it, there's like 5 shops all lined up in a row.
Plaza.
How do you say it, fancy Aaron?
I pronounce it plaza.
Okay.
Funny enough, one of my favorite actresses, Audrey Plaza, when she was in school, she would try and impress her friends or acquaintances or whatever by telling them that her family owned the Plaza Hotel, and that's why it was named that, because it was named after her family.
That's a good idea. It's a really good idea.
The joke, of course, is that this was not the case. So... But there is a great clip from Conan, and she was saying that I think it was like for Valentine's Day, whatever, she bought her boyfriend helicopter piloting lessons, and he wasn't taking them, and she was upset. And she wanted him to know how to fly a helicopter so that in case of, and she literally said, in case of a zombie apocalypse, he could fly them to safety. And Conan asked, well, why don't you just take the class? And she said, I'm in charge of weapons.
Oh, that's awesome. You can't spread the party too thin.
And she said that in just her absolute deadpan delivery, and I love her for that.
And last up, Matt's statement about like not wanting to have a device between him and his kids is absolutely rings true. Is I have like very few photos just because I naturally just want to be experiencing the event directly as opposed to documenting it, because when you're documenting an event, you're thinking about the framing and how's it looking and is it landscape or portrait or all of that instead of just experiencing it. And I actually remember I've got a picture with me with Brandon Herrera. We met him when we were down in Texas, and I literally was like, he was like getting ready to go somewhere, and I'm like, oh my God, he's going. Oh, I didn't get a picture with me and him. I'm like, hey Brandon, we've been talking for a while. Can I get a quick picture with you? Because it's just like, I didn't even think about it because I was just talking with Brandon Herrera, and that's way cooler than the picture I have. But the picture I have is something I can show other people.
Well, I believe you took the picture for your daughter.
No, that was for it was for my daughter, because she does know anybody who's ever gone shooting on Demolition Ranch, and she is as much of a fangirl of Matt Carricker as I am. Anyone who shoots on the range at Demolition Ranch, she knows and is immediately enamored with them. So she wanted to see that, but also my nephew is a huge Brandon Herrera fan, and so I knew that he would be deeply envious, and he was.
I thought it was that picture, but there was at one point you got a picture with somebody, and you said, yeah, my daughter loves you, and the response was, you let your daughter watch my show? That was
Donut Operator, and it was
okay,
because most of the time now he does police badge cam breakdowns, which are very inappropriate for my daughter, and I don't watch them when she's around. But he did a lot more of like the daily vlog thing, of which she would occasionally see those, and she really digs those like daily vlog, like day in the life of internet celebrity, and but also she's seen him shooting on Matt's range.
Is that why he's called Donut Operator? Because cops.
Yeah, he's a former police officer. So he started the channel, and he essentially would be doing vlogging from his police car and just talking about the day-to-day life of a cop. And then I think his channel got big enough and he got sick of doing it, so he quit that and went on to be doing other things.
Okay. So speaking of doing other things, it's summertime, and David is going to get all up in your grill to talk about how you need to get all up in your grill to clean it, for grilling.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. For a change of pace, and at Weirdington's suggestion, in this segment I'd like to talk about grills. By which I mean the cooking type. Specifically prepping our grills for the season. This segment can also be found as a post on the Blue Collar Prepping blog. Now that spring has fully sprung in most of the US, people are looking forward to more outdoor activities. One of those is grilling. It's always a good idea to have an alternate method of prepping food, and a small grill is an excellent option. Whether charcoal or propane or natural gas, a grill offers a combination cooktop and oven. While it isn't as easy to regulate temperature as it is with a standard indoor appliance, with some practice a grill can work quite well. Hopefully, we all prepared our grills for winter storage, by which I mean making sure as much food waste and drippings as possible were cleaned off the grill, the exterior was wiped or washed down, and the cover was securely fastened. Note, never put a cover on a hot grill. Let the grill cool completely first. Unfortunately, due to unexpected circumstances, I only did the last one of these on our grill, a small Weber Spirit, which meant I had a bit more work to do this spring. After removing the cover, I gave the exterior of the grill and the underside a thorough going over with the garden hose to remove loose debris. Then I got to work on the interior. First step was to make sure the grill hadn't become a home for one or more critters. Thankfully, all was good there. The drip tray was, frankly, disgusting. Visualize an unintentional suet feeder. Lots of hot water, dish soap, and elbow grease got it clean. I then removed the cook surfaces and heat diverters. Since I'm in the habit of cleaning the cooking grates both before and after each use, they were in relatively good shape. The heat diverters are upside-down V shapes of metal under the cooking grates. Mine were slightly rusty, but that's actually fairly normal with regular use. The heat diverters will rust and eventually will need to be replaced. The last part of the cleanup was taking a look at the burners themselves. Our grill has two, one across the front of the grill compartment and the other at the back. These are simply metal pipes with a row of small holes for the gas. Over time, these apertures will get clogged. The easiest way to clean them is with round toothpicks dipped in vegetable oil. One hole at a time. Ugh. Finally, once all the other steps were completed, it was time for a function test. I turned on the gas and ignited the grill. Thankfully, there were no issues here either. Note, propane tank valves twist open in reverse compared to other items and should be kept closed when the grill is not in use. Our grill has a piezoelectric igniter. This is a crystal-based system that when hit generates a spark igniting the propane. Other grills have a battery-powered igniter. The batteries should be removed at the end of the grilling season and replaced at the start of the new one to reduce the chance of corrosion. Some gas and all charcoal grills don't have an igniter at all and need to be lit with a fireplace match or grill lighter. Once the grill was lit, I closed the lid and let it run up to temperature. Ours will exceed 500 degrees if I let it go long enough. I mentioned cleaning the cooking grates before and after each use. Once the grill is hot, I take a piece of scrap cotton or a washcloth, roll it up, and dip it in or spray it with vegetable oil. I use this roll of cloth to wipe down the grate. Once I'm done cooking, I turn the heat back up, use a grill brush to scrub off any loose particles, then repeat with a fresh piece of cloth and oil. This keeps the grate clean and ready for use. In addition, it also helps season the metal slightly, which reduces sticking. Hopefully, this will help our listeners care for their grills for this and many other grilling seasons to come. And in the words of our very own Aaron, grillers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your hunger.
Now you listen to me, mister. I work for a living, and I mean real work, not writing down gobbledygook. I provide the people of this community with propane and propane accessories.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor at the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. We're always looking for people interested in submitting posts to the blog, so please check out the site. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the name Brena Bock, that's Brenabock. I'm also in anthologies published under my actual name. Look for David Bock on Amazon. Just not the guy who writes the computer books. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
Well, if I haven't already turned in my man card when I quit my day job to become a housewife, I may have to turn it in now when I state that I rarely use my grill these days because I find that I can cook things as good, if not better, in my lovely convection oven, and that allows me to be in just one room when I'm cooking dinner, as opposed to sometimes I'll have something cooking in the oven and something out on the grill, and almost always that means that I'm going to lose track of one and not the other as I rush between my backyard and my kitchen to keep things going. And so something's going to get burnt, and that upsets me. Do you grill, Aaron?
Of course not. Don't you remember? I'm the person who set off the fire alarm boiling water.
Well, that's true, but I don't know. Grills are sometimes different. Actually, the first food that I ever cooked for my family was on my dad's gas grill. Like, that was the first thing that I was like trusted to use. I don't really understand why, because honestly speaking, the grills are actually a little bit more difficult because the heat is so high. Like, my daughter, the first thing she ever learned to do was cook frozen shrimp on a skillet on the stovetop.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That does seem complex.
It's not too bad. They're frozen so that they really don't overcook all that much, and you're doing it on like medium heat, and just, the hard part was using the tongs.
Don't you cook them in oil?
Nope. Just in this case, we just cooked them dry. The grocery store. My daughter, she hasn't had shrimp in a while. She does like them, but no, we had shrimp the other day. But my daughter's a big, I've never met a kid that likes seafood as much as this girl, and she was just going nuts, just always wanting shrimp, and we'd be ordering Chinese food. She's like, I want shrimp. And it's just one of those this is costing us a fortune. And finally I realized, at the grocery store, you can buy raw frozen shrimp for a big bag for $10. That's not too bad. And then, I just experimented, and I found that you throw them, the raw shell on shrimp, throw them still frozen onto the pan, and just keep flipping them until the shell starts to turn brown. And then take them off, let them cool so that you can handle it, peel them, and then eat them. And they turn out good.
Well, now I want shrimp. Yeah. Thanks, Weer'd.
Shrimp are delicious.
I don't get enough of them because my mother is allergic to shellfish and just in general doesn't like seafood. So,
yeah, just
about every time I eat out, it's oh, look, I'm going to have fish. I'm going to have shrimp. I'm going to have something like that just to get my fix.
We were out on the town. It's three of my college buddies that all live relatively close to me, and we went out to go see. I think we were out to go see Mystery Science Theater 3000, and it was Jonah Ray and Joel Hodgson on the same stage. It was so cool, and they did a full film. And so we went into Boston, and when we got there, we went out to dinner, and the theater district in Boston is in Chinatown, and so we're like, let's go get Chinese food. And so we found a restaurant, and we went in, and one of my friend's wives is also allergic to shellfish, and he's just like, I want to get every bit of shellfish known to man. So we had shrimp, we had crab. I don't think we ordered any lobster, but there was a ton of shellfish ordered. Because he's like, I'm eating this, and I'm eating this now. And one last bit on David's segment is that toothpick trick sounds actually interesting. I actually may want to try that with my grill burner because I definitely think I've got a few clogged ports and an oily toothpick. That's something to try out. Not that way, Aaron. Get your mind out of the gutter. But you know whose minds may or may not be in the gutter?
If there are listeners, I'm going to say most of them are.
I mean, our listeners may or may not have their mind in the gutter, but definitely our patrons have their mind in the gutter. Especially if they listen to things like the ACP blooper reel. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/AssortedCalibers to sign up. You get the blooper reel that I just mentioned. There's also the ACP film tracks, and there's the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I get a blog. It's called Weer'dWorld.com. That's WEERD World.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
Weird Beard wants to try the toothpick trick, and I don't. I'm not really sure what you could call this, but whatever it is, it's assorted. And also a little bit assorted. And so's our podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.